Iran's Unwritten Revolution, a curated literary corpus, reveals the intellectual undercurrents shaping Iran's persistent sociopolitical ferment. The provided reading list, framed within the context of American empire and current events, is not a passive resource but a strategic lens into Iran's enduring state-society conflict.
This collection of articles and bibliographic entries functions as a proxy for the contested narrative space where Iran's official historical dogma clashes with alternative intellectual traditions and lived experiences. The very act of compiling such a list underscores a critical dynamic: the Iranian public's quest for contextual understanding beyond state-controlled media, indicating a deep, unresolved tension between collective memory and the ruling Velayati Faqih guardianship of the Islamic jurist framework.
This intellectual discontent, chronicled through historical analysis and contemporary reportage, forms the bedrock upon which recurrent protest movements are built, suggesting that the surface-level events are merely symptoms of a profound epistemological rift.
The battle for historical narrative control over the past is the primary instrument for legitimizing political power in the modern Iranian state. The inclusion of history and resources tags points directly to the core mechanism of the Islamic Republic's endurance: the monopolization of historical interpretation.
The regime's foundational legitimacy is inextricably linked to a specific narrative of the 1979 revolution, the Iran-Iraq War, and pre-Islamic and Pahlavi history. The literature in this corpus likely challenges this orthodoxy, revisiting pivotal moments like the 1953 coup, the constitutional revolution, or the role of leftist and secular factions in 1979.
This scholarly and journalistic counter-narrative does not merely academic, it provides a dissident populace with the intellectual framework to question the state's ideological claims, thereby eroding its moral authority. In this context, bookstores and libraries become battlegrounds, and reading lists become acts of quiet resistance, assembling a shadow curriculum that sustains oppositional consciousness across generations.
Literary dissent as a geopolitical signal. The international curation of Iran-focused resources reflects and amplifies internal dissent, transforming cultural analysis into a strategic asset. The framing of the list with American empire and FYI tags reveals its dual audience and purpose.
Internally, it serves as an educational tool for populists navigating censorship. Externally, it signals to Western policymakers, academics, and journalists the sophisticated, historically grounded nature of Iranian civil society's grievances, which are too often reduced to simplistic economic or religious analyses.
This external circulation performs a crucial function. It legitimizes the internal opposition in the global arena and provides nuanced talking points that can influence foreign policy discourse. The content likely details the evolution of political Islam in Iran, the sociology of its urban and youth demographics, and the political economy of its rentier state, offering a multidimensional picture that complicates any binary geopolitical analysis.
Thus, the corpus itself becomes an instrument of soft power, shaping how Iran's stability is perceived and assessed by external actors.
The persistent fault lines. The cyclical nature of protest in Iran is not a failure of dissent but evidence of an institutional incapacity to address its root intellectual and historical causes. The final strategic verdict is that Iran remains trapped in a cycle of managed crisis.
The recurring current events of unrest are predictable eruptions from the fault lines mapped by the very scholarship in this reading list. The state's reliance on coercive apparatus and narrative control, rather than ideological renewal or historical reconciliation, ensures temporary suppression, but permanent instability.
The projected consequence is the continued erosion of the regime's social base, particularly among the youth and educated middle class, who are the primary consumers of such curated knowledge. The critical next step for analysts is to monitor not just the streets but the cultural production, the books published abroad, the online seminars, the translated works that fuel this intellectual resistance.
The ultimate risk for the establishment is that this literary foundation will eventually coalesce into a coherent alternative vision, transforming sporadic protests into a revolutionary movement with a deep historical memory and a clear program for the future.